Exposed. After 10 years, a billionaire receives an amazing call about his hidden twin daughters. Just as David Carver settled into the monotony of spreadsheets in his sprawling Austin office, his phone rang with an electrifying jolt. He glanced at the screen and froze. Kevin. The name, a ghost from his past, filled him with an unease he couldn't shake. Even in his lavish surroundings, luxury cars and accolades falling from his desk, something deep within him recoiled. A heartbeat later, he answered, unaware that everything was about to plunge into chaos. "David, you need to sit down," Kevin's voice trembled. "It's about Anna and your daughters." The words sliced through his thoughts like a knife. He wasn't prepared for the revelation that would unravel everything he thought he knew. Twin daughters Ava and Mia. Hidden away. A decade of absence pinched his heart and twisted his stomach into knots. The timing felt cruel, a painful reminder of the family he had lost and the one he never had the chance to know. David could almost hear the ticking clock echoing in his mind, amplifying the suffocating silence that wrapped around him. Their lives, their experiences lived without him. "Why didn't you tell me?" he barked, the anger spilling out before he could stop it. A suffocating guilt washed over him, mixed with harsh resentment towards the woman he once adored. Did she believe this was protection? Or a punishment? Anna thought it was best. Kevin trailed off, unsure, as though attempting to shield David from the pain of truth. But how could he shield him from the reality of a life that had raced forward without him? A shudder of frustration coursed through him. For years, he had been a titan in tech, conquering boardrooms, obsessing over the next big idea. Yet, here he stood, a coward navigating waves of his own failure, desperately piecing together why he had been robbed of fatherhood. As the call ended, David sat paralyzed, the weight of the world crashing onto his shoulders. Trust. How could he ever ask for their love? How could he bridge the chasm between his opulent life in the mansion and their distant suburban existence? The thought burned at his insides. His options were dwindling down to terrifying uncertainty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. He decided to visit them, to reach out. But what did he even say? Would they resent him for his wealth? Would they hate him for years of absence? Each scenario gnawed at him, but when the day arrived, David's nerves were frayed. Watching his daughters struggle in their modest world, a neighborhood marked by hard work and relentless bills, that was a new reality he never anticipated. Every home he drove past felt like an indictment against the man he had become. The first attempt to connect was at a park, a neutral ground. However, as he approached, he felt like a phony. The swimming pool of privilege swirled behind him, yet here they were, regarding him with cautious, curious eyes. He offered them a simple treat, a gesture meant to evoke some bond. The girls' expressions were blank. Moments stretched out painfully, weighted by his insecurities. Could he be a father to them after all this time? Would their resentment turn into love? And then a raw truth clawed at him. What if they remained indifferent to him, their billionaire father, an intruder in their well-ordered lives? In that moment of intense confrontation with himself, he felt his carefully constructed world shatter. Whispers filled the air as women pushed strollers past them. David Carver was just a shadow among them, now experiencing their struggles with no means to make a lasting difference. The sensation sunk deep into his gut. Was he a success in business or merely a lost man beneath the shine of wealth? He had never felt more trapped. The fear gripped him as he tried to imagine their future without him. A wave of despair washed over him. Would he sabotage the chance to redefine himself? The thought sent him reeling. Could he truly become everything that they needed? As the wind rustled through the trees, David stood at a precipice, his past failures haunting him like shadows in the twilight, every moment heavy with the promise of a fractured connection he desperately wished to repair. The initial awkwardness of their first meeting simmered in David's mind long after he returned to his car. His fingers drummed nervously on the steering wheel, tapping out a rhythm laden with unspoken fears. Could he endure the uncertainty? Would his daughters give him a chance? The very fabric of his reality had unraveled, exposing a gaping vulnerability where once resided the impenetrable armor of success. Driving home, his mind twisted with images of Ava and Mia, two girls who were supposed to be his daughters. Each precious moment lost replayed in vivid detail, missed birthdays, and school plays he would never attend. David's success in the tech world, once a source of pride, now felt superficial and hollow. The accolades and awards lining his shelves seemed to mock him. What was the cost of ambition if it meant forsaking those he loved? Days turned into restless nights filled with silent reflection. He avoided calls, ignored emails demanding his attention, and chose solitary evenings over vibrant social gatherings. Instead, he scribbled notes in a leather-bound journal, outlining a plan to win them back, even though he battled with self-doubt. David strategized every move like he would in business. He envisioned ways to nurture a relationship that had been 10 years in the making. He couldn't simply throw money at the situation, that had never been the solution to anything deep and meaningful. It required authenticity, connection, and vulnerability. The turning point came when he found himself at a crossroads, dashing between boardroom meetings and conference calls, yet haunted by the desire to be a father. It dawned on him in a quiet moment: success in business had never meant perfection, it was about embracing flaws, iterating on ideas, and pivoting when strategies failed. Could he take that philosophy and apply it to his role as a father? Motivated, David signed up for parenting workshops, researched child psychology, and sought out advice from professionals online. He realized that he was, at least, willing to learn. The urge to evolve pushed him forward, igniting a spark of courage he had long since buried under layers of cautiousness. Each session equipped him with tools to approach his daughters in a way that would resonate, rather than intimidate. It wasn't just about regaining their trust, it was about actively participating in their lives, understanding their struggles, and perhaps most importantly, acknowledging his own shortcomings as a person, a father, a man. With intensive dedication, he dissected his fears, confronting the crippling notion that maybe he had failed them before he even had a chance to try. As the days accounted for change and growth, David finally decided to reach out again. Not to impose, but to share his ongoing journey. With a mix of apprehension and resolve, he sent each girl an email, explaining his desire to understand them better, to be present however possible. It was a risk, but one he was ready to take, and then, an unexpected reply arrived from Ava. The email was short, a simple acknowledgement that resonated deeply with David. She had written, "I'll think about it." He sat stunned, staring at the glowing screen. Hope mingled with anxiety in his heart, a riddle of emotions he had yet to confront fully. If he was willing to extend an olive branch, what might it take for her to accept it? The question lingered heavily in the air. Mia remained silent, leaving the balance precariously tilted towards the unknown. David took a deep breath, realizing that change was a gradual process of rebuilding trust, of stepping into unfamiliar territory while armed with relentless determination. He was done being just a man of wealth, it was time, finally, to become the father they deserved. The next email was a decision point: would Ava allow him to meet again? And would Mia follow suit? As David waited for answers that could change everything, a thought dared to surface. Could this be the first chapter of a story worth rewriting, or would his ambitions crumble once more? Only time would reveal the intricate dance of vulnerability ahead. Ava's simple reply echoed in David's mind like a haunting refrain. He had poured his heart into that email, revealing truths and aspirations, only to be met with an ambiguous response. "I'll think about it." It was unsettling to realize that while he had taken a step, the path ahead remained shrouded in fog. He wasn't prepared for the weight of waiting, the anxious allure hung heavier on his shoulders than the burdens of his corporate life. Days stretched into a cycle of restless anticipation. Work had become a distraction, an arena where he felt competent and in control. But away from the office, he grappled with an emotional landscape littered with insecurity and doubt. Had he made any real progress, or had he simply stirred the ashes of a bridge long scorched? On a particular evening, the sterile glow of his office computer contrasted sharply with the quiet of his home. It was a solitary moment, a breath between worlds, as he realized he had forgotten the presence of his journal, his constant companion through this turbulent period. He flipped it open, and began recording his fears anew. What needed to change within him for this dance of reconnection to flourish? He challenged himself. He wrestled with the uncomfortable reality that he had lived in a fortress of success for so long that it constructed a barrier between him and raw vulnerability. What do these girls need from me? He questioned the silence as he scribbled furiously, pouring each uncertainty onto the page. Echoing back through the pages, he recognized a critical realization. His daughters may also be struggling with their own unanswered questions, ones about him and about themselves. This sense of shared struggle ignited a flicker of insight that stoked the embers of his belief in a reconciliatory future. The following day, he began to plan a different approach. Instead of waiting passively for a reply, he would create an opportunity for engagement, an in-person chance to make amends. Tentative as it was, he sent a follow-up email to Ava proposing an outing, suggesting they meet at a local cafe with a relaxed atmosphere. To mitigate the pressure he sensed, he also included Mia in the outreach. "Let us get to know each other better," he wrote. "No expectations, just coffee and conversation." As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, David felt a mix of resolve and trepidation, a cocktail of determination tinged with fear. What if Ava and Mia didn't show? What if they were uninterested or angry? Doubts were relentless, but he pressed on, battling within himself to counteract the looming specter of rejection. When the day arrived, his heart raced as he pulled into the cafe parking lot. He could feel the weight of his past decisions pressing heavily on his chest. Yet he recognized this as a vital opportunity without guarantees, a chance to align his personal fervor with the same spirit that drove his professional success. The cafe was bustling with activity, the espresso machine creating a rhythm that matched his pounding heart. As he entered, scanning the crowd, he spotted Ava sitting at a small corner table, glancing at her phone. The sight sending an electric surge of hope coursing through him, but Mia was missing. David's resolve faltered momentarily. Now, only one daughter was willing to meet him, and he could sense the walls beginning to rebuild. It would take more than one conversation to chip away at the years of absence. As they exchanged brief pleasantries, he was struck by just how unprepared he felt. Could he articulate his intentions without scaring her away? Just then, a text pinged on his phone. The notification bar glimmered ominously. It was a message from Mia, a moment from silence. He took a deep breath, heart racing, as Ava looked on, curious. He was at a crossroads, balancing the precarious thread that tied past decisions to future possibilities. Would this meeting ignite a path for more reconnection, or would it be yet another iteration of missed chances? The tension hung in the air, thick with potential, leaving him to wonder how this moment could collapse or, conversely, unfold into something stunningly different. The truth lurked just beyond grasp, waiting for him to make the next move. David's hand trembled slightly as he opened the text from Mia. The potential for hope and despair collided within him. What would her message convey? He was acutely aware that whatever sentiment she sent could shift the trajectory of this fragile moment. As Ava observed him quietly, he felt an urgency to bridge the distance between them, despite the fragile threads of the relationship that had already begun to fray. With a steadying breath, he glanced away from the screen, trying to push the anxious thoughts aside. He needed to engage Ava first. Her presence, though daunting, was a crucial foothold in this uncertain terrain. "I'm glad you made it," he said, his voice subdued, betraying the internal chaos brewing just below the surface. Ava's expression shifted slightly, eyes narrowing with curiosity and perhaps skepticism. "I wasn't sure you would follow through," she replied, crossing her arms defensively. The unguarded warmth he had hoped for was overshadowed by the tension knotting the air between them. "Trust takes time," he answered, gauging her response. "I know we've got a long way to go." The words felt immediately insufficient even to his own ears, lacking the emotion he wished to convey, yet they represented a significant step toward accountability. Her eyes softened just a fraction as she nodded. "You're right. It does take time." There was a flicker of possibility in her gaze that he clung to, desperate and hopeful. Suddenly, the text notification from Mia rang out again, clear and insistent like a drumbeat urging him to take action. His heart surged. This moment didn't just belong to him, it hinged on the hope of his daughters as well. David shifted in his seat, casting a glance toward the screen. "I hope Mia's okay," he admitted, needing to acknowledge the absence that hung heavily in the air. "I thought she'd join us today." "Heard from her today?" Ava questioned, raising an eyebrow. "I'm surprised she even agreed to this. It can't be easy for her." "I don't know how easy it is for any of us," he murmured, reflecting on the void left by years of estrangement. "I'm trying to change that." At that, he turned his phone fully toward Ava and allowed her to see the notification, the familiar pang of dread returning. "I should probably reply." "No," Ava said suddenly, her tone sharp enough to make him freeze. "You're here now. Focus on what's in front of you." A surge of guilt washed over him, but there was an undeniable clarity in Ava's words. David hesitated, torn between his desire to return Mia's message and the pressing reality of the conversation unfolding at the cafe table. He wanted to come across as present and engaged, yet the uncertainty of Mia's feelings loomed large. "Okay," he conceded finally, easing the phone back into his pocket. "Let's talk then." As they navigated the first fragile steps of conversation, David felt an awakening similar to the early whispers of a strategy he had devised in board meetings. He sensed how vital open lines of communication were, both in his corporate endeavors and, now, with his daughters. Each word exchanged with Ava was a step toward something larger, the possibility of healing buried beneath the perplexities of his choices, but the urgency continued to pulse through his veins. Heavy thoughts of Mia still haunted him. "Can I ask something?" he finally ventured, his voice tentative. "What do you think Mia needs right now? How can I even begin to reach her?" Ava paused, a flicker of understanding passing across her face. "Maybe she needs to see a father who is ready to be open. Who can accept the messiness of it all." Eager for her guidance, he leaned in, listening intently. This discussion could redefine their relationship. But as his heart beat steadily against the backdrop of the cafe bustling with life, the weight of Mia's silence remained a dark cloud hanging overhead. The conversation shifted, veering toward their shared memories and fears, yet the truth gnawed at David's gut. Would this new knowledge empower him to bridge the gap with Mia? Or would he find himself standing at another crossroads? Uncertain once more, before long, the gentle hum of their exchange was interrupted again by the incessant pinging of messages one after another, a cacophony that seemed to mock his attempts at connection. Each sound led him closer to an unavoidable truth: he had to confront Mia, to face the very heart of the gap that had grown between them over the years. The time had come to recognize the complexities hidden beneath layers of time and silence, a confrontation that would demand not just his words, but his authenticity as a father. He steeled himself, sensing the tidal wave of emotions crashing upon him. What awaited him on the other end of that message? As the moment stretched, the potential for discovery both terrified and invigorated him. The next move was his. Would it lead to connection, or fracture what had already begun to mend? David's thoughts spiraled as he absorbed Ava's advice. She had addressed his fears with uncanny insight, and now the stakes felt impossibly high. The cafe buzzed around him, but a singular concentration anchored him to this moment. Navigating through familial estrangement was unfamiliar territory, yet the urgency for connection had never been greater. Open, huh? He mused, trying to digest what that meant for someone like him, who had built a life on control and precision. His previous professional triumphs had armored him against vulnerability, yet that armor felt like a hindrance now. His mind wrestled with the realization that exposing his true self might be the path to reaching Mia's heart. With every second, the tension layered itself thicker between him and Ava, intensifying the gravity of their conversation. "David, it's also about listening," Ava prompted, breaking through his reverie. "Sometimes, it's not just what you say but how you receive her response." Her voice was steady, carrying a wisdom he yearned for. Little by little, as they charted potential approaches to Mia, the contours of his understanding began to shift, revealing blind spots he didn't know existed. He had treated parenting like a project with structured steps, but the emotional labyrinth demanded more than mere strategy. "I can do that," he replied, but uncertainty clouded his conviction. Would he have the strength to embrace the messiness that came with it? His own father's avoidance of emotional depths echoed in memories, stirring a fear within him. Did he risk repeating that cycle? He dared not let it be a ghost that haunted Mia too. "Start with an honest text," Ava suggested, her tone unfurling gently as if the words were coaxing life from a fragile sprout. "Make it about her. Share how you'd like to connect, that you're there for her." Ending that twinge of doubt, he nodded sharply, determined to focus. He mentally drafted a response while the messages continued to bounce off him like distant echoes. It was time to craft something real, not just a message, but a bridge. "I need to lay everything on the line," he said, half to himself. The belief surged within that he could foster a space of emotional safety for Mia. Yet, the pang of fear called out for clarity. Ava honored his moment of reflection. "No one expects perfection, David. Just be real. There's beauty in authenticity." Her words resonated, breaking down the familiarity of his corporate demeanor, the one where he exuded confidence in meetings but functioned on a surface-level rationale when it came to family. As he shifted toward the heart of the matter, he felt the first signs of courage beginning to take root. "I've distanced myself too long," he said, his voice gaining stability. "She needs to know I can own that. To know it's okay to feel hurt. We can't heal from a distance." Each acknowledgement piled upon the previous as he embraced his commitment. His emotions began to crystallize the actions he needed to take, making room for growth that could resonate beyond just a text. The goddess of vulnerability called out to him, as daunting as it was. Time continued to slip, even as his mind raced. David felt the weight of generations on his shoulders, but now it sparked a fiery determination instead of fear. The culmination of those thoughts yielded something he craved, not just the ambition to connect, but the visceral knowledge that his growth required more than relinquishing distance. It beckoned him to be open. Just as resolve firmed within him, his phone vibrated again. A new message from Mia illuminated the screen. The simple notification kindled anticipation, electrifying the air around him. "What will you say?" Ava prompted, her eyes fixed firmly on his, their electric energy woven into the decision ahead. The moment had arrived. Would he choose to remain guarded or step forward into the unknown? "You're right, it's time to face this," he declared, unearthing a newfound resolve. He was no longer just a man seeking to bridge a gap. He was a father, poised to reclaim connection. This could either turn the tide toward healing or leave him standing in the storm. With a deep breath, he unfurled his fingers across the screen, his words awaiting the chance to finally reach Mia, harboring the hope and fear that entwined within him. The potential awaited. How would she feel? Would his sincerity cut through the distance, or would it splinter further? As the moment faded into the chaos of the cafe, the horizon of fatherhood seemed both tantalizing and terrifying. Fingers poised, David prepared to write not just a text, but an invitation to embrace the very core of fatherhood, raw, true, and terrifying. Would this choice forge a new beginning or merely reveal the depth of what lay beneath their fractured surface? David's heart raced as he stared at the screen, the glow illuminating his uncertainty. He could feel Ava's steady gaze at his side, urging him to act. The words he practiced felt inadequate in comparison to the emotional weight of the moment. Connecting with Mia wasn't about crafting the perfect message, it was about truth. His fingers twitched as he typed, the screen reflecting not only his hesitance but the overwhelming wish to express the years of absence he could neither erase nor outsmart. "Hey, Mia. It's Dad. I know things have been tough between us, and I hate that I want to understand. Can we talk?" He hesitated before hitting send. As a businessman, he thrived on calculating risk. However, this leap into emotional vulnerability felt like stepping into a freefall. Would she respond with anger? Indifference? Or perhaps, a yearning echo of the connection he'd long forsaken? "What's stopping you?" Ava asked gently, sensing the weight of his internal struggle. "You want this. You know what happens when you hold back." To expose himself was terrifying, yet it could also be liberating. This wasn't merely a text, it was a chance to dismantle the barriers he had erected over a decade, a sabotaging wall built on avoidance and fear. With a firm resolve, he pressed send, the notification disappearing into the vast unknown, leaving only the anticipation and anxiety swirling within him. Pulses of desperation intermingled with hope coursed through him. This was the point of no return. His thoughts spiraled into visions of Mia's face, a blend of curiosity and caution, as she might read his words. There was so much he wished to say beyond that brief message. He longed to tell her about the mistakes he'd made, the sleepless nights spent grappling with guilt, and the desire to be there for her in ways he had failed before. "Now we wait," Ava said, and in her calmness, he found a sliver of comfort. The cafe around him buzzed with life, a stark contrast to the swirling uncertainty inside him. As he tried to distract himself with the comforting aroma of coffee, every chime of a notification sent his heart racing. The clock ticked steadily, each passing second amplifying the weight of the moment. Time stretched, feeling like an eternity before his phone vibrated again. With a surge of adrenaline, David gazed at the screen. The message preview appeared. "Hey, Dad." An icy breath caught in his throat. Was this the moment he'd hoped for, or a prelude to heartbreak? The warmth of anticipation morphed into a visceral tightening in his chest as he hesitated to read further. "Open it," Ava urged, her encouragement cutting through his mounting fear. David took a breath, crafting a shield against potential disappointment. He clicked the notification, and the words were there, raw and undeniably Mia's voice. "I don't know what you want, but it's been a long time. Why now?" Every letter felt like a challenge wrapped in emotional fragility. It presented more than just a query, it laid bare the hurt, the doubts, the complexities of reconnection that he had to navigate. His mind whirred. How could he respond? Should he try to explain his absence, the complexity of their situation, or focus solely on acknowledging her feelings? Yet, in that moment a painful awareness washed over him. This wasn't merely a transactional conversation. Each word held the potential for reconciliation, healing the gaping wounds he had inadvertently created. "I want to understand you," he typed, tentatively. "I've missed so much, and I want to be here now, however you need." But as he watched the dots appear, indicating that she was typing back, he restrained himself from holding his breath. This was only the beginning, a single step toward the labyrinth of emotions, fears, and hopes between them. Would this initial outreach open the door to healing or splash cold water on his aspirations? Just as doubt began to creep in, her words illuminated the screen. "Okay, we can talk, but I have a lot to say." As he absorbed that single line, exhilaration mixed with dread gripped him. This was the moment of truth. Arriving, one he had long anticipated yet dreaded in equal measure. The conversation beckoned ahead, an avenue fraught with both shadow and light. Would he finally confront the distance and disconnection, or would he stumble in the emotional depths that lay before him? David stared at the message for a moment longer, his heart pounding at the thought of what he had just unleashed. The simple phrase echoed in his mind, "I have a lot to say." He knew this was the moment he had been yearning for and simultaneously dreading. This was where everything he had avoided for so long collided with the present. "Are you ready for this?" Ava's voice pulled him from his reverie. There was no condescension, only an understanding that cut through the chaos in his mind. Each word felt like an affirmation, reminding him of the journey he had embarked on. He met her gaze, and in her eyes, he saw a delicate balance of hope and doubt. "Yeah, I think so," he replied uncertainly. But inside, the honest truth unraveled itself, he wasn't sure at all. David's fingers trembled as he typed a reply. "I want to hear everything, Mia." He hesitated, then added, "Can we talk soon?" After hitting send, he felt a torrent of doubt wash over him. What if she only wanted to blame him? He was no stranger to criticism, the boardroom's fierce scrutiny had toughened him. Business was simple by comparison. Negotiations involved logic, strategy, and a pulse on market trends. However, this was raw and personal. No formulas or charts could guide him through the emotional complexities that lay ahead. A notification startled him back to reality. "Tomorrow?" flashed across the screen. The word hung heavily, a ticking time bomb. He swallowed hard, feeling the nerves electrify his body. One day to prepare to face the daughter he barely knew. "Tomorrow it is," he typed back. The sentiment felt reassuring, spectacularly normal amidst the storm. But beneath the surface simmered turmoil. This wasn't just a conversation, it was a confrontation with his past self, the dad who had ducked out when things got tough. "Good," Mia replied, her bluntness underscoring the weight of their exchange. "I have questions, and I'm not holding back." David leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment, absorbing the gravity of her words. The stakes were rising, and soon he would be forced to reckon with the parts of himself he had buried for so long: his failures, his regrets, the missed birthday calls, the ignored messages. What if she resented him? What if he lost this chance before it even began? "Don't think too much," Ava encouraged, interrupting his spiral of anxiety. "You've been given a gift here. It's a chance to rewrite the ending in a way you never thought was possible." Her words ignited a flicker of resolve. A chance to rewrite, to take control of the narrative. This felt newly empowering. It encouraged a slight smile to break through his trepidation. What started as a haunting isolation was now shaping into a powerful catalyst for growth. As he pondered the upcoming conversation, the realization dawned on him: there was no path to healing without stepping into vulnerability, no path forward without facing those mountains of regret. He'd have to confront not only Mia's questions but his own justifications for his absence. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours as David steeled himself for the conversation ahead. This was about more than salvaging a relationship, it was about coming to terms with himself. Would he find the courage to stand exposed in the face of all his mistakes? The cafe around him felt like a distant world, the laughter and chatter of strangers contrasting sharply with the turmoil within. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again. What about 3 p.m.? His heart hammered in his chest. This was real. Tomorrow at 3, and it was all on him. Over the years, he had mastered the art of negotiation and strategy, but this wasn't business. This was the raw truth he had to face. "Sure, 3 p.m. works," he responded, but inside he craved clarity. What would he say? More importantly, how could he make her understand he truly wanted to be there for her, to listen, to be present this time? With a lingering gaze at the screen, he knew the conversation ahead would define him not just as her father but as a man willing to face the truths he had long avoided. But just as a wave of determination lifted him, doubt crept in again. What if facing his fears only deepened the divide? The morning light filtered through the cafe window, illuminating his thoughts as he wrestled with this new reality. In less than 24 hours, he would face Mia, and everything he had wrestled with would come to a head. Determined to silence the nagging doubts, he picked up his abandoned pen and began to write, grappling with his thoughts, planning for a conversation that felt monumental. As he scribbled down notes, he knew this would be more than just a talk about the past. The moment had come to face the demands of fatherhood and the flaws of humanity. But would he find the strength to navigate the emotional storm ahead or falter once again? The weight of unanswered questions hung in the air, waiting for him to confront them. The true test awaited him tomorrow. The moment would define whether they could build something anew amidst the wreckage of the past. The morning sun cut through the clouds, casting light on the chaos of David's mind. He had prepared and rewritten his notes multiple times. Each version of his message seemed to shift in tone, some too sterile and businesslike, others too emotional and raw. There was no perfect way to frame what lay ahead. A nagging fear tugged at him. What if his words only deepened the chasm he had created? As David walked towards the cafe where they agreed to meet, he felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him. Each step pulsed with uncertainty and anticipation, each passing face reflecting a moment in his own life he had long avoided. The vibrant city, alive with purpose, felt simultaneously encouraging and suffocating. How would he find authenticity in the midst of all this emotion? He entered the cafe, taking a steadying breath as he scanned the crowd. He spotted Mia, her hair cascading down her shoulders like the essence of her youth. She appeared locked in thought, her cell phone resting on the table as she stared into the distance. This silent observation birthed a strange mix of pride and panic within him. He had inadvertently contributed to this woman before him. Her essence was a blend of his own history and the painful absence that had characterized their unconnected years. The bell above the cafe door jingled, signaling his arrival. Mia's gaze snapped to him, framing his heart in a cage of expectation. Composure was key, he reminded himself. Approach this as you would any major negotiation, lean into your strengths. But this was different. There were no market forecasts or charts that would help balance the scales of their relationship. "Hi," he said, his voice steady but laced with an underlying tremor. "Hi," she replied, her tone almost flat, but her eyes betrayed a tempest beneath the surface. They took seats opposite each other, the space between them heavy with unspoken words and swirling emotions. Silence enveloped them, and David felt time stretch endlessly, a dam of curiosity wavering on the brink of burst. After a moment too long, Mia broke the tension. "You actually showed up." The slight incredulity in her voice wasn't lost on David. "I didn't know what you'd be like," he admitted, leaning into the vulnerability he had contemplated for so long. "But I wanted to be here. I'm grateful for the chance." She narrowed her eyes, as if sizing him up. "Grateful? Is that how you feel after 10 years of silence?" David steeled himself against the impending storm of questions and accusations. "I know I've failed you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am here now," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "And I want to understand you, us, why you hate me." "In that order?" she challenged, raising an eyebrow. The challenge sparked a surge of energy in David. It was fueled by an inflection of truth in her words. "Maybe we need to be honest with each other. Just lay everything out on the table." Mia crossed her arms, skepticism etched on her face. "Honesty? You think you can just jump in and swipe away the last decade like it's nothing? What questions do you even have, really?" What was he searching for beyond those probing inquiries? It dawned on him that perhaps the truth lay buried deeper than surface-level understanding. The very act of confronting her was forcing him to confront his own inadequacies, fears, and the specter of who he might have been had he chosen differently all those years ago. "Why did you reach out to me?" he asked, trying to forge an opening that might allow them to reclaim lost moments. Mia looked away, her expression frozen between anger and vulnerability. "Isn't that what you should be asking yourself?" The answer felt like a punch, one he deserved. "You're right," he acknowledged, his resolve hardening. "I want to hear your story, but I have one too. We're both shaped by the past." "Yes," she replied, her voice sharpening. "But only one of us could have changed it." Their emotions clashed, his desire for connection grappling with her bitterness. The stakes were tangible now, each word a project in personal risk. They were not just confronting the void between them, they were examining the very foundation of their identities. David's gaze fell on the coffee cup resting in front of him, a tangible reminder of their shared world. His heart raced as he realized the conversation wasn't just a meeting about family, it was about redefining who he could be moving forward. But as he prepared for another attempt to breach the gap, a sudden burst of self-doubt struck him. Could he bear the truth Mia was about to unleash? The path to forging a new relationship would require tearing down the walls he had built around his heart, a daunting task, especially as he saw the questions in her eyes intensifying. The tension in the air was palpable. They hovered on the edge of revelation and confrontation. David opened his mouth to speak, but no words emerged. Instead, he prepared himself for whatever came next, the pivotal moment that could irrevocably alter their lives. Something deep inside him whispered a truth he had long evaded. This was just the beginning of a journey neither of them would be able to avoid. The next revelation loomed, ready to unfold, but would it bind them together or sever ties further? The answer lay in the balance of their shared hesitation. The silence thickened, its weight pressing heavily on David's chest. Mia's challenge echoed in his mind, a persistent reminder of the fractures that their relationship bore. He clenched his fists under the table, grappling with the gnawing tension. What did he want from this meeting? As he sifted through confusion and determination, clarity emerged abruptly. It wasn't he about pleading for forgiveness but rather about confronting the specter of his past choices and their impact on Mia's life. Let me ask you this, he finally said, his voice steadier now, imbued with purpose. What is it going to take for us to have an honest conversation? I owe it to you, and I owe it to myself. Mia's gaze shifted, her posture rigid. Do you really think you can just agree and everything will magically get better? What do you think honesty even means for us? Honesty means owning what I've done and what I could have done differently, he asserted, attempting to breach the fortress of her defenses. I may never fully understand your pain, but I'm here to listen, to face my accountability head-on. I refuse to only be the one who ran away, even though I was the coward then. A flicker of surprise crossed her icy demeanor. For a moment, he felt like he had struck a chord, but as quickly as it appeared, the expression vanished behind a wall of emotional steel. I don't know if I want to let you in, she said quietly, yet each word carried the weight of her internal conflict. What if I let you talk and it all becomes worse? David recognized her hesitance and it mirrored his internal struggle. How could he expect reconciliation when he hadn't even reconciled his own feelings about abandoning her? Change can be frightening, but I'd rather be scared together than alone, he offered, feeling exposed even as he spoke it. Mia's breathing slowed, eyes narrowing as she evaluated his sincerity. Together? You weren't there for years. Do you even know what together means to me? He took a deep breath before answering, his conviction growing clearer. I don't, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to journey through your pain if it means I can have a part in your life again. Her skepticism remained, but a flicker of curiosity sparked. David sensed an opening, a small chink in the armor surrounding her heart. This moment was pivotal, an opportunity challenging him to fully commit both to his own growth and to rebuilding their fractured bond. Tell me what that growth looks like for you, she challenged, tilting her head slightly, a hint that perhaps she was genuinely interested in this dialogue. It starts with understanding how I hurt you, David replied, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the table, an unsure but determined rhythm in a fight against the past. And I want to know your story, everything that I should have been there for when you were growing up without me. Those stories matter. Mia's brow furrowed, and for the first time, David caught a glimpse of the uncertainty that mirrored his own vulnerability perched on the edge of revelation. You want to know what I've been through? You think that's enough to heal years of neglect? No, but it's a start. Healing isn't a quick fix, it's a journey, he said, leaning forward, a sense of urgency suffusing his tone. I need to trek that painful ground with you, to understand the consequences of my absence. A tense silence followed, thick with possibility. Mia stared into the depths of her coffee cup, and in that moment, David saw her struggle mirrored in his own layers of doubt. Perhaps neither of them could truly move forward without exploring the past, even when it felt like uncharted territory. What if I tell you everything and find out that nothing changes? She finally whispered, the crack in her emotional facade vulnerable yet defiant. Then at least we'll both know, David said softly, meeting her penetrating gaze with an intensity he hadn't known he possessed. Knowledge is power. Even if it's painful, it's a chance to heal. As the silence between them transformed into shared contemplation, the weight of buried emotions lingered, increasingly potent. David felt a shift, one small but crucial. They were on the precipice of a conversation that could redefine everything, one where he might finally confront his own inadequacies and potentially allow Mia to reclaim power over her narrative. Yet, just as hope flickered in his heart, the faint sound of a notification rang from Mia's phone. Both heads turned instinctively, the moment thrown into peril as the past collided with the present. A text from someone close, a message that threatened to unravel the delicate dialogue they had begun. David's heart sunk. This could alter everything. Would the distraction derail their tentative connection, or would it serve as a catalyst for a deeper understanding? As Mia's face changed in response to the notification, he realized their journey was only just beginning, and the real questions were still on the horizon. David felt an undercurrent of anxiety as he observed Mia's expression shift with the new text. It was a reminder that the complications of their reunion were still very much alive in the world outside the safe cocoon they were beginning to weave together. She hesitated, eyeing her phone as if it might break the very fragile connection they had tentatively established. "Mia, you okay?" he inquired gently, his voice tinged with concern. She sighed, her fingers dancing over the screen as she processed whatever message had distracted her. "Sorry, it's just life. There's always something." David understood life had been a series of distractions for him as well. But for the first time, he was aware that those distractions could only cloud the essence of what truly mattered. "I get that. But I'm here now. Let us focus on us." The gravity of that statement hung between them. This was more than just a meeting, it was a pathway to potential healing, yet it was also a recognition that their past could no longer dictate their present. As Mia finally tucked her phone away with a sigh, she looked up at him, her eyes revealing flickers of vulnerability mixed with defiance. "You want to know what I've been through, David? Not just the years without you, but the scars?" "More than anything," he replied firmly, the intensity of his gaze matching the sentiment of his words. "Let us start there. I deserve to hear your truth." She shifted in her chair, a small act of defiance but also one that showed a faint willingness to engage. "Fine, but it's not going to be easy. It could hurt." He nodded, bracing himself. "I'm ready. I need to know, and I want you to be comfortable sharing everything. No walls." Mia locked her gaze onto his, her defenses wavering slightly. "You don't know what you're asking for," she warned, but there was a tinge of warmth now, perhaps a flicker of hope. "I know it won't be pretty, but it's necessary. I need to own my failures." Mia leaned back, crossing her arms once more before uncrossing them. "I was 8 when I realized you weren't coming back." 8. I wasn't even a teenager, and I had to start dealing with all these questions. "Why didn't you want to be my dad? What made you think I wouldn't care? I had nothing but empty space where you should be been." She hit each point with precision, raw emotion spilling forth, and with every word, David felt the weight of his absence pressing on his chest. "Mia," he began to interject, but she held up a finger, demanding his silence. "No, let me finish. I had to grow up without you in a world where I could see my friends enjoying all the things I missed. Birthdays, school events, and I spent years wondering what was wrong with me. Because the one person who should have been there just disappeared." Her voice cracked, and David felt his throat tighten. "I'm so sorry," he managed, his sincerity layered deep. Mia continued, her breath steadying as she leaned into her truth. "You were my father, yet I felt like just another kid lost in the system. That emptiness turned into anger, and that anger turned into a shield." David felt each blow she dealt penetrating his soul, the accusations festering within him. "I could never erase your anger, nor pretend it wasn't valid. You're right to be hurt. And here you are now, acting like saying sorry fixes everything. Do you think this is just about you feeling guilty?" She shot back. "No." A moment of clarity dawned as he steadied his breath. I recognize it's not just about remorse. It's about my actions and how they've shaped your reality. I can't change the past, but I want to be part of your future if you'll let me. She softened slightly, the intensity dimming as the vulnerability of truth washed over them. A fragile tether of connection grew in the wake of their honesty. And what if I say I'm not ready? His heart sank at the possibility. Then I'll wait. But I won't stop trying. I owe you that much. Silence enveloped the space. They shared a moment steeped in contemplation, the hesitance coiling around their hearts, a deep understanding finally bridging the emotional chasm. Wow, I never thought you could be this honest, Mia mused, her tone laced with surprise. It's kind of refreshing. David chuckled lightly, an ironic release of tension. Well, it was either that or remain invisible. A small smile crept onto her face. It was brief but a step forward, another fragile connection forged between father and daughter. You really want to understand? Why? She questioned, realizing the sincerity behind his words. Because you matter to me more than any business deal or corporate accolade ever could. I've spent too long believing that success is measured in dollars, but now I see that being your father is the only investment I want to focus on. The declaration hung heavily in the air, considerably more potent than anything he had achieved inside boardrooms. Seeing Mia absorb that statement, David grew bolder. I won't shy away from the hard conversations. You have every right to be angry, and I can't hide behind my excuses anymore. If it means rebuilding our relationship, then I'm all in. Her expression softened for a moment before the tension returned, a subtle reminder that the work ahead would be layered and lengthy, but he felt calm resilience inside him. If he could tackle business negotiations with skill, he could face the complexities of fatherhood with depth and determination. Seeing hope spark within Mia's gaze filled him with determination. I know I've got a lot to prove, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. She regarded him carefully, reading the sincerity in his eyes. This won't be easy for either of us. He leaned forward, the barrier between them shrinking. I wouldn't have it any other way. In that moment, David felt something shift within him, a burgeoning sense of purpose. The fear that had choked his steps was transforming into a determination to forge a new path with Mia.as. Their conversation swelled with honesty and authenticity. A beautiful realization dawned upon him. This was more than a negotiation for trust, it was mutual exploration into the realms of their lives, an evolving bond defined not by the past but by their willingness to shape a new narrative together. David left the cafe that day feeling a renewed vision, no longer a billionaire seeking validation through wealth, but a father willing to chart an unfamiliar territory filled with love, accountability, and the promise of healing. As he pondered the journey ahead, he was filled with solid confidence, clear purpose, and an established role that celebrated both his growth and that of Mia's. This was just the beginning, but he would fight for every moment, proving that true wealth lay not in material riches but through the depth of connection, love, and vulnerability. The call to action was loud: build a life worth living, one honest step at a time. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, and if this story resonated with you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and understand the power of authentic connection. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories realize the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.